Hi guys, welcome to the second edition of the GMP Work from Home webinar series, coming to you live from my spare bedroom, where I've commandeered our second screen for you today. Very lucky. Those of you who've registered and are watching this training live across AU and Z, thank you so much for taking this time out of your afternoon to watch this live stream. And to those future viewers who may be watching this recording after the live stream, we want to thank you as well. We hope you'll find the content and session really valuable. This is our second session of the new Work from Home webinar series, and today we're going to be talking about advanced audience and expansion tools in DV360. So before we begin, like most of you, we are working from home and not in our regular offices. And while we don't expect to hit any technical difficulties, we did have Tim, my co-worker's power just circuit. He is online waiting for you in the wings. But if we do experience any hiccups with the stream or our software, please just stick around on the stream for a little bit and hopefully we'll get things back on track as quickly as we can. So for those of you who I've not had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Jackie and I'll be one of your presenters today. I'm a programmatic media specialist here in Sydney. Also joining me today is my teammate Tim, as I mentioned before. He is an all-around programmatic whiz kid. Tim is actually a member of our programmatic strategist team and also based in Sydney supporting the agency business. So we have a jam-packed agenda for you today, kicking off with an overview of some key changes around our ads ecosystem, and then jumping into our most exciting new and upcoming tools, including unlocking first-party audiences, what's the benefit and how to get the most out of them in the platform, growing with Google audiences, how to get the most out of Google's free audience tools, reach new consumers and grow your customer base. Then we'll go into custom audiences and audience expansion slider, which is a really exciting overview of our newest tools, allowing you to cut, slice and dice your audiences, reach your marketing goals through flexibility and machine learning. And then we'll kick it over to Tim, who will be doing a live demo focusing on the DV360 audience module to show you all the magic in action in the UI. A call out to use the chat feature next to this broadcast. The chat's being manned by members of our programmatic strategist team who will reply throughout the session. And we'll be doing a bit of a discussion style Q&A at the end, highlighting some of our top questions. So feel free to add your questions in here. This will be the way that we can sort of communicate best. Lastly, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the Global GMP YouTube channel, where you'll find other helpful videos, case studies, and customer success stories. This is my YouTube debut, guys, so I'm pretty excited. So the past few years have had many changes in the ads ecosystem. The industry is shifting to meet higher expectations, breaking the ways data has traditionally been collected and shared in the digital advertising industry. And these changes create new and important considerations for digital marketers. New regulations around the world are raising the bar for privacy. For example, GDPR requires companies to clearly identify each party that may collect, receive, or use user data from their sites, apps, and other properties. They must also obtain consent for that collection and for personalized advertising. Similar regulation that could impact the digital marketing industry is being considered in countries around the world, and we expect interest and action around privacy and data protection to continue to grow. Web browsers are also adding features to limit third-party cookies, including those used for ads personalization and measurement. For example, the latest Safari browser immediately partitions or renders unusable cookies that are capable of tracking users across multiple sites, disabling ads personalization and measurement. Firefox has also recently announced their changing approach to anti-tracking, and we expect similar mechanisms to be implemented on other platforms in the future. Third-party cookie-based ad solutions will also be limited in their ability to measure and reach users. Audience marketing and measurement solutions which rely on third-party cookies may see reduced effectiveness in the form of smaller remarketing lists, limited match rates, or even sample biases for surveys and holdback testing. And opaque tracking and profiling techniques that don't provide user controls such as fingerprinting are really not acceptable workarounds. For example, Apple's Safari browser limits fingerprinting and other probabilistic methods of tracking. It also blocks social media like or share buttons and comments widgets from tracking users without permission. At Google I/O last year, Chrome also announced their plans to limit capabilities for fingerprinting and alternative forms of tracking, which may circumvent other privacy preferences. Not only do these tactics erode user trust, but we expect browsers to continue to close these down. So what is Google doing? Well, we're trying to enable a positive experience for users. We've enhanced our global privacy policy, made My Account simpler, and continue to improve user transparency and choices about how data is used to customize their online experience. We already have very strict policies around how data can be used to personalize advertising. For example, we don't allow our advertisers to serve ads to people based on sensitive categories such as race, religion, sexual orientation, health conditions, marginalized groups, and more. And we will continue to improve our tools over time, making it easier for users. For example, Google recently announced more fine-grained control over what account data they choose to share with each app directly within Google products. Chrome announced their commitment to requiring the labeling of third-party cookies, which will eventually allow users to more easily clear their third-party cookies used for advertising, but without impacting their first-party cookies, used to remember logins or shopping baskets, for example. I personally was very excited about the shopping basket announcement. The ads team announced an open source browser extension as a first step, giving users visibility into data used to personalize or measure ads served by Google and ads APIs about the data used in the ads served. Ads also announced a publicly available report showing aggregated statistics about our advertising related data collection. So overall, this extends to users having more control and transparency with our ads products, e.g. the ability to opt out of data being used for ads personalization, cross-device ad muting, etc. And we also believe that this approach is critical to helping our partners protect their relationships with consumers and maintain trust. So prior to digital, marketing would largely be broadcast-based on contextual signals, where you would effectively hit an audience in an environment, but with the understanding that not everybody is relevant. As long as you reach the majority of your target audience cost effectively, it worked. Then we moved into the precision era, defined by search and programmatic display, and we had the obsession about one-to-one marketing. Today, in the predictive era, we try to deliver the best of both worlds in a privacy-safe way. So how do we help you as a marketer deliver reach to both existing and new customers in the most targeted, personalized manner while respecting customer opt-in? In this session today, we'll go through some of the audience strategies and products we've developed to help you reach these goals in this new era. So there are a number of ways to execute a robust audience strategy in DV360. Firstly, using your own data-rich first-party audiences, such as Floodlight, Google's Customer Match, and other DMP first-party audiences to engage with existing visitors and customers. You can also leverage free Google audiences backed by advanced predictive machine learning to reach new and relevant audiences. And also now, which we'll dive into quite in depth, you have the ability to customize and expand on hard to reach audiences or consolidate lists with similar marketing goals. So jumping into first party lists a little further, you have dozens of touch points with your customers every single day, and these touch points give you greater insight into their intent, their needs, and their expectations. Understanding and acting on these insights can really help you drive immense value for your business, all while improving the customer experience. So what does this look like in practice? Well, there are many ways this comes to life in DV360. From a strategic point of view, you can use the power of your own data to now access insights into current or prospective customers, re-engage with existing, or connect with new and similar customers. More practically, DV360 allows a wide variety of first-party targeting, including floodlight remarketing. So you can leverage your floodlight remarketing audiences to reconnect with your audiences at any stage of the marketing funnel. An example here is reconnecting with those that have visited your site. DMP audiences. So if you or your advertiser have a third-party DMP, you can easily integrate with DV360 and leverage these audiences across almost all media. You're now also able to use the audience insights tools in platform to analyze and find similar viewers, which again, we'll go into in a little bit more detail. CRM audiences through Customer Match as well. So Customer Match is Google's tool which allows you to build lists of policy compliant phone numbers, email and mailing addresses that can be used to reach users when they're signed into Google Search, YouTube or Gmail. This feature used to only be applicable to TrueView line items, and we're in the process of extending this out to Gmail and AdX, so there's a lot more scale here as well. Activity-based audiences. So with activity-based audiences, you can actually optimize your media buys based on how users have interacted with your media campaigns. You can easily create audiences for cross-channel and cross-campaign ads personalization, which is what we call a campaign activity audience, or frequency optimization using audience frequency cap, which again, we'll go into in more detail. Analytics 360 audiences, you can leverage Analytics 360 if you have access to that platform. You can leverage this data and create unique list types, leveraging insights such as visit duration, browser, operating system, goal completions, and more, and target these lists in DV360. And another benefit here is that as they're both Google products, you can leverage the self-serve linking in platform and share audiences directly into the UI. Another one of the unique features of DV360 is that you also have access to Google's rich audience data for free. Everybody loves a freebie. This is one of them. Google receives billions of signals and insights into consumer mindset each and every day. On YouTube alone, there's 3.5 million videos watched a minute, and we have over 1 billion active users each and every day on Chrome. And the scale of these signals continue to grow, particularly in our current climate. So we're able to package up variations of these mindsets and build audiences based on interests or intent. And we make sense of these signals so you can reach relevant viewers wherever they are in the funnel, with machine learning at the heart and in real time. So illustrated here is each of our audience products next to sort of their different objectives. Kicking off with sort of your traditional demographics, you can use demo segments for high reach and awareness campaigns to soak up as many eyeballs as you possibly can. Think people 25 to 54. Detailed demographic is one of our newer audience types that's rolled out. You can use detailed demo to reach people based on facts about their life, including parenting stages, home ownership status, marital status, and education. Something to note here is that there are varying limitations on where you can use these as these segments roll out, and we'll actually be sending up a follow-up sheet to confirm what can run where. Moving to the consideration phase, you kind of understand your potential customer a little bit better and looking to target them based on insights from previous studies, activity from your previous awareness campaigns. So you can actually use affinity segments to reach people based on a detailed picture of their lifestyle, interests, and needs. Google distinguishes users that are truly passionate about a topic versus those that are merely interested in something, delivering a high reach and high accuracy segment. You can also use life events to engage with viewers when they're in the midst of important milestones and likely to make changes or major purchase decisions. For example, they're getting married or moving house. They're opposite ends of the spectrum, but two examples. And customer affinity. So using customer affinity, you can reach hard to reach audiences. We make them more accessible through the ability to create a custom list of people based on their interactions across Google Search, Maps, YouTube, and Android app data. With these segments, you're able to define the signals Google uses to build your audiences, including URLs and keywords. And finally, similar audiences through the audience expansion tool. Similar audience targeting is a simple yet really, really powerful tool for reaching individuals who share interest profiles with your existing customers. And by targeting similar audiences, you can reach more potential customers who share similar behavior to the audiences you selected. And finally, moving to action, where we're really driving to your most engaged customer to act on their consideration or intent to purchase. We've already spoken about remarketing, reconnecting with people who have previously engaged with your brand or your site. You can also target them with in-market, so driving higher consideration amongst people who are actively researching and intending to buy products and services you offer. Custom intent. With custom intent, you can really define the keywords that matter to your brand and reach people soon after they show intent. And finally, customer match, which we've already gone through, uploading CRM data to create a discrete list that you can target within the platform. Now, some of you might say, well, that's all well and good, Jackie, but how the hell do I know where these can run? Well, with an ads ecosystem that is constantly changing, it's important to know when and where you can use these sophisticated audience strategies. And we know that there are some environments where audience signals can be used in abundance, where users have consented or opted into being targeted. However, even in those where signals are not available, Google audiences are designed to deliver in any environment. Where we aren't able to personalize an ad for part of your traffic because someone has opted out or cookies are constrained, we'll rely on the context of the page where your ad is being served to determine the relevance. Again, we'll be following up with the take home of what can run where, which will clarify this a little bit further. Finally, before we jump into the UI demo, which I know you're all waiting for, we've been putting a large amount of resources and development into giving you, our users, more flexibility and control to truly customize the best of audiences in DV360. Two of the biggest launches this year so far are our combined audiences, now in general availability, and our audience expansion slider. Combined audiences gives you the ability to combine different audience types to create a persona. For example, the parent of an infant who is also a shutterbug, or to segment an audience segment or list into different subsets. So, for example, remarketing to an existing customer who are back in market for your product. The system will then automatically assess and display in which environments the list can serve to ease the planning and activation for you. Our audience expansion slider provides you with a slider toggle that gives you more control over the rate of audience expansion applied to your campaigns. The sliders are rolling out to all audience targeting types across Google Ads and DV360, so good to know if you're using both platforms. The audience expansion slider leverages machine learning to find a wider audience that is similar to the campaign core targeting and predicted to perform better. The product is designed to do no harm to existing goals. The slider itself is effectively a sliding scale. We're pretty good at naming things at Google. And that controls the rate of expansion by adjusting relevancy goals or relevancy thresholds. As you increment the slider to the right, we'll unlock additional inventory by gradually relaxing relevancy thresholds on expansion thresholds. And as you shift the slider to the left, we reduce inventory by tightening relevancy thresholds to expansion. To be clear, while the slider equates to a slight trade-off of relevancy to gain this audience expansion, sliders does not negatively affect performance. So a reminder here, why should you care and why use audience expansion? Simplicity for one interface to control audience expansion for each line item, slide to the right for more volume, slide to the left for less volume. Reach, this instantly expands your ads to more available inventory through extending reach within your audience targeting in the most cost-efficient way. You're able to capture short-term demand, so easily respond to seasonal temporary changes through leveraging the slider, for example, increasing for additional demand for, say, a flash sale. Performance, as I've mentioned a few times, audience expansion is a feature that we strive to provide more volume at comparable or better performance to your manual targeting. And then finally, maximizing budgets. So preventing under deliveries without the expense of performance, particularly important when we're coming up to end of financial year. Now, in the interest of time and getting stuck into the platform, I won't dwell on these features too much, but please note the new audience types that are or will be compatible in the near future, including in-market, custom intent, affinity, custom infinity, as well as combined audiences. So making this tool more compatible with your more bespoke and custom segments. And the great news is you can access all of these features that I've gone through in one centralized place in the UI called the audience module, which we'll now dive into a little bit deeper. Tim will be taking you through the key features, which are outlined here, and how to analyze and profile your audiences, create a combined audience, campaign activity audience, and audience level frequency cap, as well as using the audience expansion slider. Tim, over to you.
Thank you, Jackie. I tell you what, having the power drop out on you 5 minutes before you start a live stream is a good way to get the heart beating. So apologies if I'm a little jittery. Cool. Thanks, Jack. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to jump into the UI. Now, what we have here is a test account. It's tied to one of the Google Merchandise Store sites in the US. So I will just caveat, some of the data is very US centric. So when we look at geo analysis, we're not going to have a really nice Australian view of that, but we'll make do with what we have. So the first thing to note here is I am in the advertiser level. Now we can jump into this, these audience tools here in this left-hand pane at the partner level. There's a few reasons that you might do that, but be aware that audiences created and played with at the partner level will be available across the partner. So for those of you who are running in agency trading desk seat that covers your whole team, it can be worthwhile just being aware of that and making sure that you're not creating an audience of users that might be seen by another account that it shouldn't be. However, it can be useful for gaining partner level insights and creating segmented or campaign activity audiences that sit across multiple advertisers. However, for the purposes of this, let's have a look at it at an advertiser level. So audience tools are all available here in the left-hand pane. This is normally collapsed. What I'm going to do first is we'll just go through some of the analysis tools, because that's a really good jumping off point to generate the insights and stuff that you might need for going forward into actual creation. So first tool, audience profile. The audience profile is a tool that allows you to create and generate or understand the composition of your selected audience based on its similarities to other audiences available within your account. You want to select a seed audience here, and that's going to be the baseline to which we're comparing all of the other audiences. So because of that, pretty important you pick something with decent statistical significance. For the purposes of this demo, we're going to do all users. You can also check this against combined audiences, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. When we jump in here, what this is going to show us is how does the audience I've selected, which is our all users audience, compare to other audiences that are available in here. I'll start with some filters because these can be useful depending on the use case you're going for. First of all, you can look at minimum and maximum user counts. So if you're trying to find a really small audience list or something, that's going to be a useful way that you can filter it there. The second thing we want to talk about is the overlap similarity index. Now, this is a really important tool, and you want to play around with this depending on how you're planning to use this tool in your use case. A 10 would be basically every user in that audience is the same as the user in your baseline audience. So if one of these audiences was a 10, every user would be exactly the same as this seed that we're using here. A 0 is going to be no users and limited similarity. So what you're really looking for is something, if you're looking to explore for new audiences or expand, you want to be sitting in this sort of 1 to 4 range. If you're looking to remarket to existing users, you're probably going to be in the 5 to 7 range. The other thing that you're going to get here is an analysis of the demographic breakdown of your seed audience. So you're going to see things like male and female splits, you're going to see age, parental status, income, device types, that sort of thing. Now, something to be really aware of here, this is a really useful way of honing down some of your bigger audiences to be more demographically relevant to the sort of campaigns you're running. So if I was running a wide, really wide targeting against a bunch of these interest or affinity lists, then I could use the demographic numbers in here to refine that targeting down to a smaller group. Now, this is important because it just allows you to narrow that quite a bit. The other thing to be aware of in here, so this middle pane is going to give us the actual audiences themselves. So this is just a snapshot of all of these different tabs here. Those tabs can be used to gain a bit more depth if you want to see more audiences there. The show all button will also deep link straight to those tabs. What we can also do here, and this is really useful, is you can select multiple audiences. So let's say we want to look at people who have an affinity or cloud services power users, quite a big audience, and who are also in market for SEO and SEM services and enterprise software. We could actually create a combined audience of all of those lists together through this user interface right here. I won't do this because I want to show you the workflow for how we get there normally, but just something to be aware of. Cool. The next tool that we want to go through is the geographic distribution. So this is going to give you a bit of an idea of where in terms of geo your audiences are located. So we'll use that same audience. And again, like I said, this is US based. So not surprisingly, 42% of those users are in the US. This is going to give us the ability to filter down to things like region, which in the purposes of the US and Australia is state. DMA doesn't cover us in Oz, and then postcode. So again, it's there's a few use cases for this. It really depends on how you want to go about these things. But if you have a list of converting users that indexes really highly to certain postcodes, that could be a really good way to inform a geo-targeting campaign there. Cool. All right, so that sort of covers the broad strokes of our audience profiling tools. Let's jump in and create some audiences. So to do that, you want to jump back into this all audiences thing here. And there's a few different options along here. Now, we're going to start with a new audience. And we've got a bunch of options here. Today, we're just going to cover combined and activity-based audiences, but I'll give you a quick rundown of these guys here. So tag-based audiences are going to give you the ability to create an audience based solely on floodlight activity data. So if you've got some floodlights implemented from Campaign Manager or DV360 on a web page, you could create an audience for them here. YouTube users allows you to create audiences based on interactions and activities tied to the linked YouTube channel for your DV360 account. And uploaded data is going to be where you go to create the customer match list that Jackie talked about, which is where you use existing CRM systems, things like email addresses, to create a list of customer match users. Let's have a look though at combined audiences, because there's been a lot of development in this tool recently, and there's some super powerful use cases for this. So as with anything, we're going to give the audience a name. You can give it a description, not necessary though. We're going to start with an include. Now, first thing to note, audience type up the top here, super important, because this is where you're going to flick between the different types of audiences you might want to use. For the purposes of this, let's go along with that previous example where we had people who are cloud services power users. So we'll add them in here. And then let's add the in-market audiences as well. Let's go SEO. Cool. So if we applied those two audiences, we'll see that they've OR'd those two lists together. This is a really important distinction because there's a bit of logic that goes into this around and, or. So an and audience is an or audience is going to combine all users from the top and all users from the second audience. What we can do though is we can actually add a group to narrow, which is going to be an and audience. So they have to appear in both lists before they can be used for targeting. For the purposes of this, let's say we want to target only users who've been to our site before. So we're going to use that same all users audience that we used on the seed audience. What you are going to see here now is we've got our two Google audiences here, and then we're narrowing that by users who visited our site. Note here, you can also do things like recency targeting. That's going to massively reduce the size of our audience list. So we went from about 100 million display users to around 21K. There's another thing you can do here, which is around exclusions. Exclusions are super useful, especially for like converter type audiences. So we want to exclude people who have entered the checkout funnel, let's say, in the last week. Now, again, you have that recency functionality here, which is super useful. So we can go there. So basically what I've got here is anyone who's a cloud services power user or is in market for SEO and SEM services, they're being narrowed by all users who visited our page all time. And then we're excluding people who've entered the checkout funnel. And again, you're seeing that sort of summary of that audience along here. Cool. Now, the next thing that I want to go through that covers combined audiences, the next thing I want to go through is activity-based audiences. There's some really interesting stuff here and a couple of use cases that are relatively new, but super powerful. So two different types of audiences sit under the activity-based audience. One is a campaign activity and the other is a frequency cap audience. Campaign activity audience allows us to create an audience based on the number of interactions or media events that have taken place in our campaign. And what we'd use that for is like if we wanted to re-engage with users who had, say, clicked on ads under one insertion order. So if you add a campaign dimension, let's say insertion order, and then let's just pick an IO here, in market categories, apply. Now what we can do then is add a rule. So what this is going to do is we pick a metric. So these are the metrics that we have here. Now, I will note there's an important distinction here with impression-based. Because an impression itself isn't necessarily a consented use, we don't allow creation of audiences based on impressions. What we can do, though, is users who are in part of a first-party data list who are served an impression, or users who end up converting and can be served an impression. You can use that for this. Let's look at clicks, though. And let's say we've got clicks that are greater than or equal to 1. This will create an audience of all users who have clicked on this campaign 1 or more times. So the next thing that we want to cover is audience frequency cap. So this is super useful to cover some things around if we wanted to, say, exclude users who had seen creative from campaign A from campaign B. Same sort of function here. We would select a type. So let's say insertion order, let's say is one of the same campaign here. So this is, yeah. And then impressions greater than 1. What this is doing is creating an audience of users who have seen more than 1 impression from this campaign that can be used as an exclusion across other campaigns. Super powerful for those use cases where your client might want to say, users who've seen creative A, I don't want them seeing creative B. Creative is also one of the options that we have here. Cool. Now I'll jump into a line item and show you some other bits and pieces. So here we go. All right, in this line item, we've got some interesting stuff going on here. So let's look at the audience lists. This is where combined audiences is really powerful, because what you might normally end up doing is creating these audiences of combined chunked together things in this UI, and then you reuse the same audience again and again. Combined audiences allows you to create them as one and then target them once rather than going over it again. However, for the purposes of this, what I want to show you is similar audience settings. So Jackie talked before about the audience slider, which is the tool that allows you to expand your reach. This is where you'd find that. So it's in the audience targeting section. What you can basically do is pick various tiers of how restrictive you want this to be. So it sort of goes from off to more similarity. So users in this have to be incredibly similar to the existing audience targeting settings. You'll see you get a forecast here. Now this is super, super wide targeting, be aware. So our impression counts are really high. It is just a whole in-market category. And then as you go further up, you get more and more impressions. So that's where you'll find that similar audience slider. Cool. So guys, that covers most of what I wanted to talk through in the UI. I think we've got some questions. So let's jump into a Q&A.
Awesome. So I think our team sent out a call for questions. I can see that the platform strategists have been answering your questions as we go, which is awesome. But we also had some come in prior to the session. So we'll jump into those first, and then we'll go to the live Q&A if we have time. So we had some questions about how do different audience segments work across device in the platform, which is a great one. As we've mentioned a few times, these audiences, or all audiences in DV360 are slightly nuanced. So definitely reach out to your account manager or tech account manager to help if there's a specific use case here. But our cross-device targeting really is aimed at helping connect first-party audience data to our Google cross-device graph to find and retarget advertisers who are signed in on Google Ad Manager inventory across all devices. And some of these audiences are some of these compatible audiences are Customer Match, Audience 360 lists, Floodlight, Google Audiences. Third-party DMP audiences are case by case, but I think the long-term vision is that this will also be compatible depending on which DMP partner you're working with. Another point here is that it's 100% deterministic, which has the highest privacy score, which is great, but does come with some limitations. So again, depending on your use case, definitely ask for more information there. And really, to make use of this tool, we would recommend making sure that you're targeting all device and environment types and eligible creatives for as much inventory as possible across all of the devices. That's essentially the process to opt in. You don't have to be whitelisted or there's no beta process. So I think that probably covers the majority of it. Definitely let us know or again, reach out to your Google contact if there is a specific use case that you're looking to get more details on. Anything to add there, Tim? Or
no, that covers it. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So cool. Match rates.
Yeah, I'll take this one. Cool. So this was one that got submitted through the forms. Look, it's a really good question. So what kind of match rates can we expect when uploading first-party data into DV360? Does it vary based on upload method? Basically, what it comes down to is like the method of collection. So when we're collecting the audience, how is it collected? And then the method of ingestion definitely does play a part. It's not something we provide specific benchmarks on because it can vary based so much on that. So it's one of those like garbage in, garbage out selections. If your audience is collected in such a way that we don't get user IDs on a lot of them, then you are going to have issues with match rate. What I would probably say is the best way of going about this is working on the collection side of things. So making sure you've got really robust audience capture and collection strategies in place to make sure that you're capturing as much and as rich of an audience as you can for targeting later on in the platform. And your Google reps that you deal with on a regular basis can provide some more specific pointers on that, because it's going to be pretty important to make sure that collection piece is the big part there.
Cool. So this came in as well, and I think that we've covered this pretty thoroughly, but I just wanted to make sure that we wanted to make sure that this was covered fully. But what is the best way to maximize scale with my first party data and audiences? Definitely the audience slider at this stage, as well as using some of the audience analysis tools that Tim mentioned around the audience profiling tools, where you can find sort of high indexing segments. And then finally,
environments inventory. Yeah, cool. Okay, so what are the best environments and inventory to be targeting when using third-party data? Look, again, this ties back to my earlier point around collection mechanisms. So if you have a first-party audience that's collected, in one environment, you're going to have a much better match rate against that environment than you might cross-environment. So I'd say that it really is about tying those two things together, and again about collection strategy. So if we're collecting first party data in one environment, just be aware of where it's come from and then use that to inform your media buying in a live targeting environment.
Awesome. So we'll jump into the live Q&A here. I see that there are plenty of questions, some of them which have already been answered.
Cool.
So
just have a read through. Cool. I'll just clarify, sorry, I'm just going to pin. So Ashwin, you asked this activity-based audiences question only if the line item is targeting a first-party list. So two functionalities there, and I think I covered this, but it is a really good question, and there has been changes to this relatively recently, so I want to clarify. So activity-based audiences, if it's based on an impression, a click, or a conversion, is one part, and then there's the frequency cap audiences, which I covered. Activity-based impression audiences, yeah, that's correct. The user has to appear in a first-party list, or they have to have converted on the site because that's an implied consent. However, what you can do is, for the purposes of exclusion, you can use the frequency cap audience functionality to go, if a user has been shown an impression, we can exclude them from further campaigns. Cool. Oh, Jackie, you're muted.
Another one from the geo options, Tim. Another one from the geo options earlier. Do they cover New Zealand? So yeah, yes, they do is the short answer, but we do know that New Zealand definitely as a region has issues with scale with some of our tools, just purely because of the population size as well as and that's tied to privacy concerns. So generally, the rule of thumb is with postcode targeting or postcode when we're talking about postcode targeting or reporting, is that there has to be a certain number of sort of signals or insights or people there in order for us to surface this information. So it definitely does, but it may vary depending on how granular you're looking into the tool. Anything else to add there, Tim? Are you right?
No, yeah, that covers it very well. I just jump onto Anne's question here. So what's the look back window of activity-based audiences? Currently, the limitation on that is a 30-day look back, which is just tied to like user consent and like data retention policies. Yeah, so maximum previous 30 days. And
cool.
then,
oh, Joshua's question, would it be fair to assume that combined audience is for convenience, as you can do the same and or targeting under the line item? So I think that this was a question that we had prior to the ability to be able to combine audiences when we're looking at sort of an or functionality and creating sort of a discrete segment. It's just another, there are several ways that you can do that in the platform. From a and perspective, actually combining audience or creating a persona or profiling your first party audience against a Google affinity audience, for example, so site visitors that are interested in travel, and creating and being able to profile against that creates a new bespoke segment.
Yeah. So what I'll add to that is that historically, if you create those combinations of audience functionalities within the line item level, you won't be able to combine a first party audience list with like a Google or like an in-market or an affinity segment. The combined audience tool gives you the ability to add those two together. So like you're actually looking, if you think about it as a Venn diagram, you've got like your Google audience over here and your first party data audience over here. Historically, it would target all of those users. In the new combined audience tool, it's just targeting the crossover of those two. So that's the primary difference in combined audiences, but also from a convenience perspective, if you do have those audiences you're regularly using time and time again, it's way easier to create them in combined audience and have them as a targetable chunk.
Peter, no worries. Sorry you joined in way too late. Got held up by a meeting. This happened. This session is 100% recorded, so you can replay it as many times as you like.
Lena, this is another good question just around like site behavior. So if you have a like GA360 example linked and that's pushing audiences in, that will count as a first party list that you could use. So you'd have to create the site behavior based audience in GA360, so conditional on having GA360 deployed, but it would work for the purposes of the exercise to do that. I hope that answers the question.
So can we use advanced audience targeting outside of AdX inventory? Yes, we can. So several of our audiences are available on third-party exchanges. The biggest limitations are really around custom audiences, I think mainly custom intent, but really depends. Definitely encourage you to share your specific use case for more information.
Zane, this is a good question, actually. I believe that it is just, so audience frequency cap currently is just tied to standard impressions, not viewable impressions. But that's actually a very good idea. I might go write up a little feature request on that because that's a good one.
Cool. I think we've answered most of the questions. There's a few in there that seem to overlap. So, but the conversation's definitely not over. We really encourage you to reach out to your, as I mentioned, your Google rep, or feel free to reach out to, either agency or vertical for more information here. Our audience tools are constantly evolving. And it would be great if you guys, as an action from this, got in the platform and had a little play around. So we will follow up with some resources as well. As I mentioned, some take-home resources about limitations, what can run where, and we'll also be sending out a survey, which please, it would be great if you could give us any and all feedback. We definitely welcome it. This is mine and Tim's YouTube debut, so anything that we can build on would be amazing. Thanks so much for attending, guys. See you next time.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.